Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 165, interview with Janet Whalen, sleep coach for midlife women. Welcome to the podcast, Janet. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to talk to you about sleep.
Yes, we have such good topics to dig into today. But before we do that, we're going to cover a lot of things sleep and alcohol related. But Janet, why don't you just give them a little introduction to you, who you work with, and how you help people?
Sure. So I'm Janet Whalen. I am a sleep coach. I usually say for midlife moms, but I work with quite a few. I work with women. I even work one-to-one with men. So don't be afraid to reach out if you are a man and you hear this. Been a coach for about 5 years. A couple of years ago, I also got certified to provide a program called CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. That doesn't mean I'm a therapist, though. I am a coach. I just use some of the formats and strategies from CBTI to complement the coaching work that I do with women. And I picked this audience of women in particular because more women than men struggle with insomnia every year. That number went up quite a bit even during the pandemic. And there's just a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, who've spent a lot of time, focusing on taking care of everyone else and not focusing on themselves. And so I just think, hey, if we can help some more moms figure out how to sleep and how to feel better about it, then I've done a good job.
I love it. But you also had like your own sleep. You're a recovered insomniac. Is that what you call it?
I do kind of call it that, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your story.
For sure. So I can remember fighting sleep as a kid, like really young. And my parents would send me to bed, and inevitably, like 15 minutes later, I would come down the stairs and complain that I couldn't sleep. And they would sometimes let me sit on the couch and watch like Mary Tyler Moore with them or something. And other times it was, no, go back to bed and try harder. That was always the advice, right? Which incidentally is the worst advice you can give someone who has insomnia. Trying harder does not result in good sleep. So I grew up just thinking that there was something wrong with me, that I was not meant to sleep. I was somehow some kind of special unicorn who needed less sleep than everyone else. Even though it was frustrating to me, I didn't know there was anything I could do about it, and I didn't know what was causing it. And I just really struggled. Through university, I turned my schedule almost completely on its head. I was awake all night and slept in the day. Really made me feel awful. Couldn't participate in, half the stuff that was going on at school. Took me a long time to kind of figure that out. And, some traumas that I experienced in life brought it up again. And so having kids and, things that happen to us that we can't really control that affect our sleep, but then we learn bad habits about how to manage it while that's happening. And then it just becomes kind of like this vicious circle that you can't feel like you can't get out of it. So I became a coach 5 years ago. A couple of years into that, I did the same program you did at the life coach school and decided maybe this is something I can work on with my thoughts. And I did. And I couldn't believe it. I'd been spending like kind of a focused year and a half trying to fix it, like using my Fitbit data and trying to do all the things that you read about on the internet that say that will help you with sleep, right? Like keeping your room cool and dark and going to bed at the same time and all that stuff. And none of it worked. And my Fitbit just kept reinforcing for me that I was a terrible sleeper. And so the thoughts I had that sleep is for chumps and I don't need it and this is a waste of time just kept me in this cycle of insomnia. until I started realizing maybe I don't have to think about it that way. Maybe
Oh,
there's a better way to think about this.
yeah.
And yeah, I managed to fix it. And then I found CBTI and realized, hey, I didn't invent this. This is actually something that's already out there helping people. And there's actually not enough people who do this work. There's way more people who need it than there are people who help with it. So I
Love
decided
it.
to make it my work. Yeah.
Love it. So, listeners, I had Janet come into my private coaching program, the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living program, and do a workshop for us this past weekend. And it was so good, and like it pinged me to think I should have it. I should have her for my public audience too, because you have so many good things. And one of the first things I want to talk about is, especially for my clients, I'm guessing it's probably similar to you, is like this fear of when they stop drinking or they significantly cut back on their drinking, that they're not going to be able to sleep. So many of my clients, especially in this middle age, late 40s to 60, early 60s woman who maybe works outside of the home, maybe has kids, right? Like a multi-dynamic life, and they've been using wine to go to sleep every night. And so the idea that they won't be able to sleep because they know they've been using alcohol as a tool to help them sleep sometimes prevents them from doing this work to stop over drinking because it's too much for them to do at once. They're like, and I'm not going to be able to sleep, and I'm not going to be able to drink or significantly cut back. Like it's too much to do. Right.
Yeah.
So that is an obstacle that they sometimes just aren't willing to go through. So I want to talk about that. So what do you have to say about that fear that
Yeah.
they have?
This is such a deep topic. We can talk about this from so many angles.
Mhm.
It's really common, right? Like most of the people who come to me, and I get a range of different reasons. Some people who are using alcohol, some people who are using like 3 and 4 different medications, whether they're over the counter or prescription, to be able to feel better about falling asleep, right? Because for someone who's struggling with insomnia, really what's happening is it's a fear of not being able to sleep. It's a fear of I'm going to lie there and feel frustrated and feel all the feelings that I didn't want to feel during my day.
Yeah.
They're going to come rushing in because it's quiet and I'm not busy now and I'm not pushing. I can't push it away because with busyness because it's quiet and nobody's around, right? So
Yeah.
that's when it all comes in and starts working on our thoughts. And that feels like a lot for people. And so the good news here is that the work that your clients are doing to stop over drinking is a lot of the same work to sleep better. And a lot of the thoughts that they're working on around, feelings that they'd rather avoid than confront or allow themselves to feel, it's a lot of the same work that we do. We could tackle this so many different directions.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that the fear isn't, it's like it's universal. So even when if it's just like, say the only problem is sleep,
Yeah.
and they've been taking 4 different sleep aids, including a glass of wine, and they might decide to wean off the sleep aids or
Mhm.
learn, like, is that what you're saying? Like, so like to really solve the sleep thing, they might be scared to do that because they wouldn't be able to take the sleep aids. Is that what?
Right. So there's a behavioral model for insomnia that suggests that there are things that kind of cause um, minor short-term versions of insomnia for us, and most people can just recover from those on their own automatically. They don't have to do anything different or think anything different. They just start sleeping better. For
Mhm.
people who struggle with insomnia, they develop these perpetuating factors, right? So they start using alcohol, they start using medication, they use weighted blankets, and like it's anything that you're going to grasp onto that's outside of you to say this is my magic sleeping tool.
Mhm.
Okay. And we tend to we assign the success of our sleep to that thing instead of to the fact that our brain made it okay to go to sleep because we took that thing. It's almost like it's a placebo effect, right? Like we believe it's going to work, so it works because alcohol actually makes your sleep worse. We know
Mhm.
this for sure.
Yeah.
Right? It makes your sleep lighter. It
Mhm.
impairs your deep and REM sleep.
Mhm.
You wake up many more times during the night, but we believe because it helps us feel drowsy at the beginning
Mhm.
That's at least getting us over that uncomfortable hurdle. But I guarantee you're going to have that uncomfortable hurdle at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up and you feel like you shouldn't be awake right now.
Right,
Right.
right.
So it's literally just putting off the inevitable for later. You're
Mhm.
not actually helping yourself.
Yeah,
You feel like
yeah,
you are in the moment, but you're not.
yeah.
So yeah.
So how do we deal with so say, women want to stop over drinking and they know that they've been or using sleep aids, either one or
Mhm.
both.
Yeah. Stop in both.
And they want to cut back on their drinking and the reliance on these sort of external things to make themselves feel better, right? Like, what is the time period? Like, what do you set up them for expectations on what to expect? Or how can you coach them through that fear of what that experience is going to be like?
Yeah. So first of all, I never set a timeline. That's
Mm.
up to them to set their own timeline, especially if it involves prescription medication. They need to work with their doctor on that.
Mhm.
And I don't tell them because I have several women who come to me and say, "You're going to make me stop drinking, aren't you?"
Mm.
And I say, "I'm not going to make you do anything."
Yeah.
You want to stop drinking? Like, are you afraid that if you stop drinking, you're not going to be asleep? Because if that's what's happening here, and I think it is based on that question,
Mhm.
then we're going to work on that with coaching, right? Like it ends up being the tools we use to help you sleep are almost secondary. The coaching is the big piece.
Mhm.
So what we do is we start tracking behaviors and things that they're doing around sleep, like what time they go to bed, when do they wake up, what time do they eat, when do they exercise, do they get light in their eyes, all kinds of things like that. We track that over 7 days. And then we take sort of the average of that and we look at it over a couple of weeks and see, like, can we correlate a bad night of sleep with any of these behaviors, right? And when they start to see the data in front of them and they know that every night they had a couple glasses of wine before bed, they woke up 3 times in the night,
Mhm.
they can start making that mental connection and they see that they can be kind of responsible for fixing that, right? And it's just a lot easier to, if we let go of you need to stop drinking to fix this and
Mhm.
just allow, let's just do the behavior and see what happens, right? Let's just keep
Mhm.
doing what you're doing and see how it's affecting you.
Yeah.
And
So it's
then
kind of like tracking the data. Like,
yeah.
if you want to stop over drinking and you're worried about sleep, let's just see and look at the data and evaluate how you're feeling the next day, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, all of that stuff, so you can have a direct correlation in your mind that this is actually affecting your sleep, not making you sleep better. Is
Right.
that the message?
It is because, and I think, like, how and this is always funny. I find this with couples, right? Like, well, I don't ever tell my husband what I want him to do. It has to be his idea, right? We're all like that.
Yeah.
We all have to decide
Yeah.
that something is our idea. We have to
Interesting.
buy in and
Yes.
we have to like accept the data and our own responsibility for what's
Love it.
happening.
I love this so much because I do think it's just like the model in which we're trained, right?
Yeah.
So like when
Yeah.
you see the impact of your own thinking and how that creates a result in your life, and you're aware. Like the first step is always awareness. And I think this is the
Totally.
thing here, right? So let's get aware of the real impact that alcohol, the full picture
Yeah.
of what alcohol is having on your sleep, right? And it's okay, like this doesn't have to be an overnight thing. And
Nope.
then you can decide from that awareness and that consciousness and seeing the impact that has, what that looks like for you going forward.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
call it, like, the sort of tagline for my program. It's called Permission to Sleep. And I say, I teach you to sleep without pills, potions, or needing permission. Right.
Mhm.
And so I kind of lump alcohol and any kind of over the counter stuff or prescription medications all in there. However, when people start working with me, if they want to stay on their medications or their go for it. Like, you work with what works with you, but we're gonna see, like, you're gonna be confronted with, is it actually working? Just
Yeah.
exactly like what you were saying, right? And then you're gonna make the decision for yourself. Because I
Yeah.
can't tell somebody, I mean, I can tell somebody scientifically, you're going to sleep better if you're not using alcohol as a sleep aid. We know this for a fact, right? But I can't make you do it.
It's like saying somebody, you need to quit smoking because you're going to get lung cancer. Even now with alcohol, you have a more higher chance to get breast cancer when you drink as much as you do. That's not enough. Like we talked earlier about this fear tactic and like you got to scare your way into they all know the people that we serve are smart.
They are, and
Like they know all this stuff and it's not helping them figure it out, right?
no, it's made them terrified. And with insomnia,
Yeah.
being terrified of not sleeping, it just makes it worse. Like, and same with drinking, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're terrified of the result of change or not changing your life, you're just going to go
Mhm.
hide. You're not going to actually confront yourself with your own responsibility in this and say, what can I do?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that probably works temporarily for some people who want to like white knuckle their way through anything. And it's the same with
Might
weight loss.
kickstart something. It might kickstart for them to like do
Right.
a program or, get some support or whatever, but it's not a long-term solution.
No,
Yeah.
it's like the boogeyman in your closet is now
Yeah.
responsible for your results, not
Right.
you.
Right.
And that's not a lasting it's not a lasting answer. And
Yeah.
so with sleep, we know that it works the opposite, not just around kind of the decision that you have to make and your own belief, but it's around the fact that insomnia is in fact made worse by added stress, right? And so if you're using these fear tactics to scare yourself into trying to sleep better, it's going to backfire for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when people come to me, that's typically like where they are. They almost all of them say, I've tried everything. I don't buy this. How are you going to fix this for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I've heard it all. I know. I know. I tried
Yeah.
everything too.
Right. Me too.
Like,
It's the same. I mean, there's so many parallels here with the drinking and the sleep.
yeah.
One of the things that you said that kind of blew my mind, I feel like I need a whole separate podcast on this, but it's this idea. It's not a nighttime problem, it's a
Yeah.
24-hour problem. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. This one, I think, was one of the key things that helped me turn it on its head, like to really understand everything that I think during the day and all the ways that I behave and treat myself and expectations I have of myself all impact my night. If
Mm.
we just plow through our day and never take a moment to like stop and think about how is my behavior here affecting my stress, how is being a perfectionist or people pleasing my way through my day or whatever it looks like, um is this honest? Is this making me feel good and relaxed and calm and stress free, or is this adding to my stress? Because if it's adding to your stress, it's going to show up, like I was saying earlier, as soon as you put your head on your pillow and life gets quiet.
Right.
So there's a huge correlation between insomnia and chronic stress for a lot of people. Now, I should just stop. There are several reasons people have insomnia that are like they're medical reasons, right? Or they're psychological disorders. I don't deal with any of those. That's something you need a doctor for, psychiatrist for. I'm talking about people who have sort of uncomplicated insomnia that is stress related. But yeah, that's why it becomes a 24-hour problem. We can't just push everything away all day and expect it not to show up at night. And what happens when we're doing that is we're treating sleep like an on-off switch, right? Like we can just go, 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 go all day long and then suddenly flip a switch and be able to sleep. It doesn't work that way. It's more like a dimmer switch. And so even if you're expecting that sort of hour of the dimmer switch to make you feel calm and relaxed, like I think what some people do is they think, I have this work hard, play hard mentality. I'll sleep when I'm dead, but don't worry, I meditate before I go to bed. Right. So it's fine.
Right, right.
It's like, I don't think so. Not usually. Like you're using your meditation as a weapon against yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually how it works. Why don't you do a little meditation during the day? Try
Mhm.
that and see what happens, right? See what
Mhm.
comes up when you allow your brain to be quiet or allow your life to get quiet. And what is your brain telling you in those moments? That's
Yeah.
the stuff that we need to work on so that it doesn't show up when your head hits the pillow.
Right. I mean, it's exactly the same with the 5 o'clock making dinner
Yeah.
transition from home or from work to home or,
Grab a glass
into
of
the
wine.
evening if you're not working out of the house, right? It's like, I call it the buckets of your life. What you think about yourself, your health, your relationships, your work, many or some external factor like family stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
there's just major buckets that we have in our life. And what you think about them during the day creates your experience in your life, right? And then those thoughts that you have about those buckets create these feelings in your body, and those feelings drive these different actions. And when you're not aware of all that shit, and then you come to 5 o'clock and it's time to transition into the evening routine, and your brain's like, I just need a glass of wine. I just need to take the edge off.
Yeah.
We need to get to the root of why there's an edge. Right? And so
Exactly.
it's not about the alcohol. It's about your life, right? And this is
Yeah.
where life coaching comes in and getting to the
Right.
root of all of this stuff. Like, what are you thinking about your relationships? What are you thinking about your job? What feelings are you not looking at during the day? Where are you not giving yourself some time to just close your eyes and take a few deep breaths and process some of that through? So you're not carrying all of that energy with you and all these emotions that are left unprocessed until the end of the day. No
Yeah.
wonder, right? No wonder, like, we have insomnia and we overdrink and we overeat and all these things to escape that mental load that we have,
Yeah,
especially.
it's like a big storm cloud that develops throughout the day, right? And then
Yeah,
like you can see it kind of building in the distance, and then it just lets go all this massive rain and thunder and lightning on top of you. That's
yeah.
sort of how I picture it as a metaphor. Like you think it's fine, it's maybe threatening in the distance, but it's not hurting you right now, so you can ignore it. And
Hmm.
then, like you say, 5 o'clock comes or bedtime comes, and poof, now I need,
Right.
and you think I need to run away from that, like the edge
Yeah,
that you're talking about, right? Why do you have an edge?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay if we do have edges, but have better tools,
Yeah.
right? And like learn how to use these tools during the day so that you can sleep better at night and drink less.
It's how you respond to them, right?
Yeah,
And how, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Is
I
it
love it.
okay to acknowledge them? Or do
Yes.
you feel like you need to avoid them and run away from them? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's so good. So like when I talk about too, I talk about all the time like this idea, is it fun to drink? Because that's another big
Mm,
fear that people have. It's like, "Oh, my life isn't going to be fun anymore." And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, let's just look at that. Let's just zoom out and look at a 24-hour period, right? You think it's fun to drink for those couple hours at night or out with your friends or whatever, and you overdo it though. We're talking about people that overuse, not just your casual,
Yeah.
having a glass of wine or whatever.
Yeah.
Is the whole experience fun? How do you feel when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with heart palpitations, sweating, not be able to get back to sleep, dehydrated, racing mind, right? Is that fun? Probably
Yeah.
not so much, right? How does
Yeah.
it feel the next morning when you actually get up and get ready? Are you starting your day late? Are you panicked? Are you stressed out? Are you yelling at your kids, right? Is that fun? Probably not. So, like, when you really dial it down, maybe like 10% of it is fun, but the rest of it is not fun. And so we
Yeah.
have to stop telling ourselves these kind of stories like sleep doesn't matter or I'll sleep when I'm dead. It's the same type of situation. It's like we say that to ourselves when we don't want to address it.
Totally. I call this like choosing your version of hard, right?
Yeah.
Everything, both those situations are hard that you
Yep.
describe. So which hard do you want? Which hard gives you the result that you want?
Yeah.
Because life isn't always going to feel easy or good, but
Hmm.
which version do I feel better allowing myself to go through?
Yeah.
Um, I get this question or this objection as well, and it's, you're going to make me sleep on a schedule, but I like to be a free spirit. I don't like somebody telling me that I have to do the same thing every day. And I'm like, okay, then don't. How's that working for you?
Right.
Like you can keep doing whatever you want to keep doing, but you're coming to me telling me that it's affecting your sleep. Do you want to sleep better? Then we're going to choose which hard you're willing to accept, right?
Right. Yeah.
Once you can sort of try on some different things like that, and I always look at it that way, right? It's sort of like trying on different outfits or experimenting with your own body and your own life. Like, let's just
Yeah.
see. Just try
Yeah.
something that you're afraid to try, and just one thing this week, and see how it works.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep it if you don't want to.
Yes. I mean, we're all such rebels. We don't like being told what to do, right? We want to decide what we want to do in the moment.
Yeah.
But I think like what we were talking about earlier is like seeing the results that rebellion causes you sometimes. I'm all about rebelling against societal rules and paradigms and all that shit.
Yeah.
But like it's hard when we rebel against ourselves because it's like we want it, but we don't want it, right? We say we want to cut back, but then we don't want to follow a rule, right? So it's like this constant battle that we have with ourselves that causes more stress
Yeah.
and overwhelm, and then we need to escape from that. And then we just feel bad about ourselves because then we don't follow through when we want what we want. We don't have the energy that we want, and we
Yeah.
fall back into our old behaviors.
Yeah. I think with
So,
sleep and with over drinking, like it's the same, it's this crutch of the tool that we think is giving us the result, right? The
yeah,
wine is actually saving me.
yeah,
And once you can remove that even from one situation,
yeah.
and then see what happens. And then the other thing that happens is as soon as we remove one of those things, there's a rush to replace it with something else. Right?
Mm,
It's like, well, if I don't have a glass of wine, then what am I going to do? Because that's what I
right.
do. That's what I do at that hour.
Yeah,
Right? Now what? And then it becomes, and this is where I see like a lot of women who have sort of perfectionistic, productivity focused type behaviors.
yeah.
And they're like, well, I have to fill all these hours. I don't know what I'll do if I have to be awake for 4 more hours. And like, you're
Mm,
taking away the thing that I do.
yeah.
Well, like, let's look at that. Why do you feel like that's the only thing you can do
I
at that time?
know. We
I'm
have such
like, I
a hard
guarantee you
time
that.
just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like what we were built, I mean, I don't know what you were raised like, but for me, it was like we just don't sit around.
Yeah.
That's what my family like. We're not lazy. There's no time to, if you have time to sit down on the couch, there's work that could be done.
Yeah. My mom used to say boring people get bored.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I saw,
Like
I
you're not allowed to be bored. You're not allowed to sit and relax on a Saturday morning or a Sunday
right.
morning or
You're
you know
wasting
what
the
I
day
mean?
away. Yeah.
Wasting the day away. Yes.
Mhm. And
Yes.
that coincides with a belief that you have to earn your sleep, which
Mm.
is or earn your rest, right? That if you weren't productive enough, your rest equals laziness. I completely do not buy that. That is garbage, and we have to stop. Like, there are people who believe that, and I think it helps them continue to feel productive, or like their productivity equals value for them.
Mhm.
I don't subscribe to that at all. I think that's causing a lot of people a lot of sleep problems. It might be okay for people who don't struggle with insomnia, but for people who do or who tend towards that, it's just another reason to believe that you either did or didn't earn your sleep or your rest.
Yeah. It's wild.
That's
Let's
not
talk about some societal stigmas around like we've got a lot of
right.
parallels between the support that's available for people and like mass opinion when we think about cutting back on drinking or quitting alcohol, and we've got a mass public opinion or what people think, like they've been influenced through experts and messaging and Google searches and Apple iWatches and things like that to think about sleep in a certain way, just like we've been influenced to think about issues with alcohol in a certain way, right? So like for me, it's, I get a lot of pushback, especially in the public atmosphere about, oh, I'm hurting people because you're telling alcoholics that they can drink again, and which is not true at all. I've never said that. That's
Right.
not what we do at all.
Right.
I am a proponent of you getting to choose what kind of relationship you want to have with alcohol and giving you a very safe and healthy space to do that for people that can safely do that without medical supervision, right?
Right.
And for you, it's very similar. So talk to us about some of those stigmas.
Yeah. So because sleep disorders can be quite serious, right? Like, there are things like narcolepsy and sleep apnea, and there's certain circadian rhythm disorders and other things like that that really need to be treated by a doctor or a psychiatrist or a sleep medicine behavioral
Mhm.
specialist. And that's not the work that I do. I'm very careful. I don't treat, I don't diagnose. I'm not a medical professional. I am a coach. So I help you with your stress related insomnia, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, there's those specialists and those medical professionals are overwhelmed with the amount of people who don't necessarily need the specific service that they require. They could probably work just fine with me, but they don't know that that this is an option that's available, right?
Yeah.
That you can actually, a lot of people are helped with their sleep by working on their thoughts. In fact, major studies of millions of people have proven that CBTI, which is the sort of framework that I use, works better than Ambien in every head-to-head study, every single one. And it lasts for like, the effects last into years, not just weeks or months or whatever, because it's changing the way that you believe about yourself and you believe about your sleep. Whereas taking an Ambien might help you sleep that night for an extra half hour. And that's the truth. Most of these sleeping pills only help about 30 minutes. A gratitude practice gives you the same result, by the way, everyone. So which one do you want to pick, right?
Right.
And so for me, it's challenging because I hear, don't work with a sleep coach because they're not trained. Well, a lot of them aren't, and that's true, right? So you really have to be careful, and you have to know who you're working with, and have they studied a little bit about sleep. And like, I've worked with 2 different clinical psychologists who are expert at this, and I made sure that that's where I got my training. But at the same time, I know what I can't help, right? Like if somebody has bipolar disorder, I'm like, no, please go talk to your psychiatrist. It's not responsible for me to help you with this. At the same time, there are a lot of people that can be helped with this work. So I'm just kind of like, I don't want to not offer it because I know how many people it helps. Like I have clients who I see it happening, like within the first 3 weeks of working with my clients, they're always sleeping better. Like, and the very few people it hasn't worked for have been people that I warned at the beginning, this may not work for you because, and ended up being true. And I give them a refund. Like, that's how I work, right? I'm not going to guarantee a result when I think that this might not be appropriate for you. And, but I want to welcome people who've tried other things or who don't have any kind of secondary medical or psychological thing going on, that this is something to try before you, go taking Benadryl or some other the counter thing.
But like the mass public opinion on sleep and like what it's like what we need. Let's just go there. What we need, like the parameters around what's healthy, what's not, what we should strive to be doing, and like the fear and like the threat of what will happen to us if that doesn't happen. So let's talk about what is real and like what we actually need and what we might want to let go of.
Yeah, and this is a there are a lot of myths with sleep. Most insomnia is caused by our inaccurate thoughts about it, actually. And if we could just all learn what's actually true, we'd probably solve a lot of it without even having to provide any coaching. But 8-hour myth, the sort of, you need 8 to 10 hours to be healthy, to avoid getting cancer, to avoid dying early. We hear all kinds of terrifying statistics about what happens if we don't get 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But every single study that's been done on this, that's correlated sleep with longevity, with long life, has shown that 7 hours is actually the closest, tied most closely to long life. And that long sleep, which would be, 9 or 10 hours or more, is more closely tied to early death than short sleep. Believe it or not. So a lot of people are scared into developing insomnia because they get 6 or 7 hours of sleep a night and think they need 8, but they're functioning just fine, right? Like they're going through their days just fine, but somebody bought them an Aura ring, or somebody told them, you need to be tracking this because 6.5 hours or 7 hours isn't enough and you need to do better. And it's probably coming from a place of love, right? Like everybody thinks this is true. And the truth is, it's just really not. Now, having said that, there's a wide variety of need across age groups, across like based on your sex, depends, right? I could never look at someone and say, you only need 7 hours of sleep. Some people feel really great on 8. And so 8 is good for them. It's learning to tie the quality of your sleep to that number and what you're making it mean. That's important. right?
Mhm.
So for me, I've learned that if I get about 7.5 hours, sometimes 8, I'm awesome. Like I'm waking up just before my alarm. I feel rested. I don't feel like I need a nap in the afternoon. I'm not getting drowsy after lunch, that kind of thing. And I can fall asleep quite easily, like within 15 minutes of going to bed.
Mhm.
If I get less than that, I start feeling like I'm craving comfort food in the day. I'm snappy with my husband and my kids. I don't feel like doing my work when I need to do it. I just don't feel like kind of in charge of my intentions. Like
Yeah.
I'm just reacting to my day and my world instead of
Mhm.
approaching it intentionally. And so having learned that that's kind of the balance that I need to strike to feel good for me, that's what I shoot for. But I'm also not really regimented about it either, because I know that being regimented is going to take me back into this sort of cycle. So I pay attention to my drowsiness signals. I think about, well, it's getting around the time that I normally go to bed. How am I feeling right now? Like, do I
Mhm.
feel drowsy? Am I yawning? Are my eyes kind of drooping? Like we all have different kind of drowsiness signals, but you
Yeah.
you know yours if you pay attention to them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that becomes your bedtime, right? You don't buy into any of this stuff that says everybody needs to have a couple of hours of sleep before midnight because that's the most healthy sleep. Like there's lots of people who don't go to bed till midnight and they sleep till 7 or 8 and they're just fine.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all different. You have to figure out what feels good to you. There's
Yes.
also there's a thing called core sleep. So about 5.5 hours of sleep seems to be the amount of sleep that most people need in order to function cognitively and physically for their next day. That doesn't mean that that's what we're shooting for. It just means if that's what you're getting, please don't freak out and worry and make it mean all kinds of horrible things are about to befall you, because it's probably not true.
Yeah.
You're not really experiencing sleep deprivation until you're getting, less than 5.5 or 6 on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like for people that want to cut back or wean off a sleep aid or something like that, the short-term tiredness that they might feel as they learn to fall asleep without needing things, working on their underlying stress during out the day, like that's not going to be, that's temporary, right? So in like the health impacts of that, what would you say?
There, I tell everyone because there's a part of my program where that happens inevitably,
Hmm.
and it's usually in the second week. And I warn people this week you're probably going to feel like garbage.
Hmm.
Like, let's just be real, right? I'm not telling you this is going to feel good.
Hmm.
We're changing your schedule, we're changing the way you think about sleep, we're changing a lot of stuff, and you're not used to this. It's not how you have been sleeping.
Hmm.
Let's just prepare for that and know that when it shows up, we know what it is.
Hmm.
It's not causing you any physical harm. You're probably getting the same amount of sleep or more than you did in the last 2 weeks.
Hmm.
I just ask you not to drive. That's the
Yeah.
biggest, like, that's literally the biggest health risk to somebody who is going through something like that. Is when you are overtired, it's similar to being drunk, right? Your reaction time is much slower. You really shouldn't be behind the wheel or operating heavy machinery. So
Hmm.
that's like the biggest risk. Other than that, I'm like, okay, just know that you feel tired. Great. You know what feeling tired means? You're building up great sleep pressure, so you're going to have a great sleep tonight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the way to start thinking about it.
Hmm.
Our body wants to feel this. Like feeling tired is not something to run from. This is actually a great thing that you know that your body feels tired. You're recognizing it. So when
Yeah.
it comes up tonight, this means go to bed, right?
Right.
Instead of, oh, I hate this feeling. And this is the feeling I get when I let myself fall asleep on the couch and then I wake up and go to bed and my eyes are wide open. Well, yeah, because your brain believes couch is where you sleep, not your bed. And you've laid in bed so many nights that you've developed a fear of lying there wide awake. And your brain is not correlating this as a place to sleep anymore. It's not correlating this as a place that feels comfortable and restful and cozy and safe. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some, that was really good. I think that's just like removing the fear is huge, right? Like not worrying about it, not worrying about long-term effects. It all is temporary. It's discomfort, right? There is a payoff in the end of it though, right? So that's what I like to remind my clients, and I'm sure it's similar for you. It's like be willing to feel some planned discomfort on the
Yeah.
beginning end of it so that you get the benefit of freedom, right? Of going to sleep when you want, when your body's ready,
Mhm.
restful sleep, not stress out about it all day. Same thing with drinking. Be willing to sit with those urges and be uncomfortable and say no sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because when you work through that in the beginning, the freedom is on the other side, the peace of mind, the ability to have fun in any situation, not worrying about what people think. That's what's waiting for you.
Yes. And you won't recognize that that benefit as much if you didn't feel the pain first, right? Like it's kind of like this was not the price of the benefit, but kind of like this is how I know that this other version of heart is what I want to choose
Yeah.
because I did it's still better than the way I was living.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
So
felt
good.
out of control and like scary and
Right. At least like this discomfort is something that you've chosen to do, right?
right.
It's you taking action towards the life that you want to live and experience.
Right.
And part of that feels uncomfortable, but it's also like your choice. It's not happening to you like it is just kind of happening right now. Like the discomforts are just sort of like the side effect that we have with over drinking and lack of sleep. But when you choose to work on it, those discomforts are like worth it, right? It's like this is what it takes sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much more empowering
Yes.
to know that you chose that and you chose this result. And
Yeah.
that if you go back to that old behavior that you just allowed to happen to you,
Hmm.
that you're going to keep getting the old result. And it's like, and I really, this is why I say it's like an experiment because I think a lot of people just have to see that, right? They think that
Right.
the other thing just happened to them. They don't realize how much they participated in the other choice.
Yes.
We're always making a choice. You just, you were kind of abdicating your responsibility for the choice
Yes.
in the first scenario.
Hmm.
And this one, you're just much more aware of it
Yeah.
because you've decided on the result you want. You're in the other
Yeah.
one, it's like, well, I'm going to choose to use this tool or this crutch. In this one, you're saying, I'm going to choose this result.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference.
It's great.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, what are maybe like the top three recommendations that you think
Yes.
people should try? Like if they're just listening to this podcast and like, okay, I want to work on this, what do they do?
Okay. So these are, aside from the thought work and the other stuff that we've been talking about, one of the best things you can do for your sleep is to get actual outside natural light in your eyes. Okay. Because sleep is, I call sleep coaching like an art and a science because it really is like the coaching part is the art and it's based on the science of our circadian rhythm. That is a
Right.
biological process that we're just getting in the way of. That's all that's happening, right? We're just putting ourselves and our brain in the way of this thing that wants to be happening every 24 hours. One of the biggest pieces of that is light. It's what drives light hitting your retinas in the morning is what kicks off a whole series of hormones and neurotransmitters that tell your body it's time to wake up now. It
Mhm.
increases your heart rate, your blood pressure, and gets you kind of going, right? And then when light goes away at the end of the day and triggers melatonin and lowering your cortisol and your stress hormones and all the things that keep you awake, you want the opposite. So in the morning, even if you can just be outside for 15 or 20 minutes, like if you're someone who drinks coffee in the morning and you can just do that on your front step, or better yet, go for a walk because moderate exercise is actually one of the best natural sleep aids there is. And get your light in your eyes in that way. And you've kind of killed two birds with one stone.
Mhm.
That's one of the key ones. Okay. Every day. We're meant to be outside, right? We're not meant to be in our house. And even in a
Yeah.
well lit house, we're not getting anywhere near, like it is a fraction of the amount of brightness that
Hmm.
our circadian rhythm really needs to be
Okay.
kicked into gear. So that's the first one. The next one is stop worrying about a bedtime routine. Hold that really lightly, like anything that you think is you should do, just I'm making air quotes right now, to sleep better. I kind of say like pretend that thing is like an egg in your hand, right? Like just hold that thing really lightly and don't, as soon as you see yourself kind of tensing and your hands are like wrapping around that egg, you're going to break it and it's going to run down your arm, and that's gross. Nobody wants that. So hold that idea kind of lightly and be like, what do I want the hour before I go to bed to be? Right. I don't want a whole list of things that if I don't do them right, I'm going to beat myself up about.
Mhm.
So what are things I enjoy? What are things that relax me? What are things that, that I say, you know, have a basket of these ideas of whether it's a mental
Yeah.
basket or a physical one, and just pick two or three that you really like to do. So bedtime routines out the window. You should just have sort of this wind down hour instead.
Mhm.
And then the last one I suggest is that the most important part of your schedule is your wake up time.
Mm.
7 days a week, same time, no matter
Mm.
what, no matter how you slept the night before, wake up at the same time. And
Interesting.
that's one of the most, uh, one of the biggest drivers of like helping you regulate your circadian rhythm. Your body will adjust. It's kind of, if you think about it like traveling time zones, right? That's what
Yeah.
happens when we sleep in. We create this sort of lifestyle or social jet lag for ourselves.
Mm.
When you sleep in an hour or 2 hours every weekend, you're just shifting your whole circadian rhythm like one or two time zones. So,
Mm.
and we know this when the time changes twice a year, right? It takes a couple days to sort of get back to feeling like we're
Yeah, I've never really thought about
right.
that, how that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so imagine doing that every freaking weekend. This
That's
is
it.
what we do.
So there's this thing called Sunday night insomnia, and people think it's about work, but it's really usually because they slept in. Now they can't sleep, so they're thinking about work because that's the thing that's stressing them out. But it's really, if you didn't sleep in all weekend and you got up at the normal time, you would have fallen asleep and not had time to worry about your work.
Wow.
You wouldn't have had that Sunday night insomnia. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the
That's gonna piss a lot of people off, Jana.
right. I
I
know.
know. They're
It's one
like,
of
no, sorry, not doing
the
that. It's the
that's
only time I get to sleep in.
so this is like when we're talking about, you know, societal kind of things, this is one of the big ones, right? We're taught sleeping in as a treat,
Yeah.
right? We're taught like give yourself that time. And think about how many social media images you've seen of like women lounging with their laptop in their bed,
Yes.
right? You're like,
Yes.
that's the worst thing you could be doing. Like, stop working in your bed, stop sleeping in. These are your bed is for sex and sleep. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. And
I
then
mean, I'm not pissed off about this, but I know that people listening to this podcast are
yeah,
like, that's where I draw the line.
these are
So like how
the
do we overcome that? Like what's some easy things that they can consider to think about like what the benefit of that is? Like
the biggest
yeah.
benefit is time, right? So as soon as you stop, I say sleep as or sleep coaching's like winning the time lottery, and this is why, because as soon as you stop all of these behaviors that are taking up time in your day, and
Mhm.
I guarantee that if you're someone who's sleeping in, you have all kinds of thoughts about that. Like we just said, one of them is this is the only time I get.
Mhm.
This is a treat for me. I deserve it. It's because
Mhm.
I don't get enough sleep during the week. I'm going to catch up. All these thoughts that are inaccurate.
Mhm.
Um, Once you stop that behavior and you realize how much more time you have in your day, because I also guarantee those people who are complaining that I'm going to ruin their schedule and take away all their fun and all the rest of it are
Mhm.
the same ones who say, well, I wish I could go to the gym, but I don't have time.
Yeah.
Or I would love to go for a walk, but I don't have time. And I don't see my husband
Yeah.
enough, or we don't have time for date night because we don't have time. And I'm
Right.
like, well, you're spending half your day worrying about sleep, planning for sleep, and not sleeping, but spending all that time in bed frustrated, right? What if I could give it all back to you as time for you? What would you
Yeah.
do with it?
Yeah.
Right?
Love it.
That's the biggest benefit. And you start to see that one really quickly when you
Yeah.
change your attitude about your sleep schedule.
Yeah.
That's when I was talking before about people always say, well, I no, I'm going to be a rebel. I you can't own my sleep schedule. I'm not doing that. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, you're just going to
How
keep
is that helping you
yourself.
today? How is that helping you right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's be open to it. I know like I'm kind of like over exaggerating, but I just know
Oh,
if
it's
somebody were to
not
tell
an
me
over.
that, I would be like, no, sorry.
Yeah,
I think that you're smart, but I'm not doing that. But like that resistance is something you want to examine and like look into it a little bit. That might be the thing that changes everything. I don't sleep in on the weekends.
yeah, that's
I
going to
wake up
shine
at
a huge
almost 5 o'clock,
spotlight.
5:30 every day of the week, and I love it. And I don't care. I don't feel like I'm not missing anything. I love my morning routine.
Yep.
It's a good thing. But
Yep.
as like if I it's hard for us because we're past the problem, right? You're past your sleep issues. I'm
Totally.
past my over drinking. So it's easy for us to say now, oh yeah, that's what I do. It's not a big deal, right? Like it's great. But thinking back to when I was an over drinker, this would be a huge thing for me to like I did not like morning. You know what I mean? So I would do room darkening shades and I was a
Yeah.
freak about sound and if my husband made a sound in the morning, there would be hell to pay, if he woke me up. And
Yeah.
so we get listeners, we understand like that this is a big obstacle. We
Yeah.
understand that it may seem impossible to consider something like that, but you can do it. We've done
Yeah,
it.
I think the other side of it is like because we understand so deeply what that felt
Yeah.
like, that's why we're so like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's so obvious now. And I wish,
Yeah.
like these are the things that I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. But when I think about like how much time I wasted thinking that way and worrying about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
I think, oh my gosh, I could have used that time in so much
I
more
know.
happy ways.
I mean the money that I spent trying to
Yeah.
sleep in, the room darkening shades and the sound machines and placement of rooms and telling my husband he had to take the kids out of the house so I could sleep. I mean the dramatic like undertaking that was,
Yeah.
right?
We talked about like some of this in your workshop too, right? Around like the dramatic thoughts even about our husbands, right? And how they were impacting our sleep or how they
Yes.
were responsible for the fact that we didn't get to rest or we didn't get to shut down or
Yeah.
whatever. And all of that is just tied up in these beliefs that the thing that I'm doing is the only way that I'm getting to sleep right now. And if
Right.
you take that away from me, I just don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
Like you're going to ruin everything that's good, but
Yeah.
not realizing how much good we were sacrificing on our own, like
Yeah.
with our own free will. You
Right.
know?
But we know that now because we're on
Yeah.
the other side of it. So it's like if you all only knew what this felt like, I wrote this in an email recently. It's like you would be willing to do whatever we told you to do,
Yeah.
invest as much money as you possibly could to fix it. If you could experience what
Yeah.
Janet and I have on the other side of this. So, yeah.
Totally. 100% agree with you.
Any final comments? How can people follow you? Like, do you have social media and
Oh,
all that
I
fun stuff?
do. So yeah, I am at Janet Whalen Coaching on Instagram and Facebook. Um, I have a worksheet for anyone who struggles with sort of calming their anxious thoughts in their mind. Like when you lie down and you think your brain is just like so busy and your thoughts are racing. If you
Mhm.
go to janetwhalen.com/sleep, there's a link there for you to download that. And it's super helpful to do a couple hours before bedtime, or even just in those moments where you're really frustrated and you just don't know how to stop thinking these things. I guarantee most of you think it's 17 things, most of the time it's three.
Yeah.
Write them down, put an action plan to them, and just empty your brain of them. And that it's a big help. And it's not the solution for sleep, but it's a really helpful tool. And then once you sign up for that, you get a bunch of other stuff from me that you will find helpful as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much. I'll link all this up in the show notes, everybody, so you'll be able to click through and get that worksheet and follow her on the socials. But this was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I can talk about sleep any day.
Love it. All right. Thanks again. Oh, that was so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Janet, for coming on. You are going to help a lot of people sleep better and get over the fear of reducing how much you're drinking and what the quality of your sleep could look like. So, if you guys want to join me and stop over drinking and start living, I am taking applications to join the group coaching program. So, click through and get your applications in, and you're on your way to sleeping better and drinking less. I promise. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.